Hello, today's video is on an iron ore mining site called Ore Hill in Roaring Spring, Pennsylvania. Today, Ore Hill is on present-day site of Iron Masters Country Club, and this iron ore mine was considered the best in Blair County, and it was operated by Peter Schoenberger and then eventually Cambria Iron Company. Okay, me and a friend here are here on Ore Hill, and we are exploring some old iron ore holes. Ore Hill was known to have the best iron ore rock in the nation in the 1850s up until the early 1900s. And here's iron ore. There's veins of iron ore all over this site. And here's one large iron ore mine. It's they would have cut from the top over here, so they dug down. Looks about 40 feet deep in here. This is one of hundreds of iron ore pits around Ore Hill. And I always look around the site and you can find these test holes. This little impression right here. They would always start out by digging test holes just to see what the veins of iron ore looked like. And then when it found to be a successful spot, they would start digging. We'll just go look around. I can't describe how large these pits are, and they are endless. They go for hundreds of yards, but this is the main commodity, iron ore rock. And we're talking about a heavy industry from the 30s up until early 1900s, where they extracted hundreds of thousands of tons of iron ore out of these pits. And this iron ore would be used in blast furnaces to make iron. But what we're doing right now is we're following the old, looks like probably the dinky tracks would have went right through here, along through these cuts, and they would just mine along here with the steam shovels, and they would load the dinky cars and take them to the ore washers. Iron ore mining was a very busy industry during the 1800s whenever the iron blast furnaces were in full blast. Iron ore rock was the main commodity used to make iron, and Ore Hill provided the best iron ore in the nation. You can see a pile of iron ore rock here, and it was just left behind by the miners. But around these sites, there'd be hundreds of ore holes, pits, and even mine shafts. And hopefully we can find some mine shafts when we're around here. Something about this iron ore, it was rated the best iron ore rock in the nation at the time, around the 1850s to the early 1900s, to where the government contracted with Peter Schoenberger that owned Ore Hill to buy all the iron ore for military weapons. And this iron ore was considered the best for certain grade military cannons and guns. You can just see all the valleys and the cuts and the big mounds. And like I said, an iron ore mining site, they all look like this. You know, just large areas that they just took out hundreds of thousands of tons of iron ore. Pretty awesome. A lot of these iron ore holes would fill up with water when they were mining, leaving equipment underneath. So it'd be neat to dredge this out and see what's down under there. But there's a lot of filled-in ore mines that flooded, and equipment was left behind. Let's take a look here into this embankment. You can see kind of what they're cutting into. A lot of clay, and iron is always mostly underlaid with clay. So here's iron, and you can see it all through here. An old forgotten iron ore mine filled up with water. See the large embankment around it where they cut out, and then you go onto the other side and they were mining over here too. Okay, here's a geological map from 1895 from the book here I have on the Blair Atlas and the Morrison's Cove, Blair County book on mining. It's an extensive book full of maps of Blair County, and this is a great map to understand where they were mining iron ore. If you see all the different stone that they were mining in Blair County, and you come down here, and we're all the way in the Southern Cove. Here's iron mine in Lafayetteville and Bakersville, and this is Bloomfield. This is where we're at today, and you can see how large this area is. That means that was a huge mining site, and you can see this one right here, spot, and we got Henrietta down here, which is another large site. Red Ore Bank, Millerstown. There's one in Martinsburg here. Rebecca Ore Mines. There's some more iron ore. Here's some in Beavertown, down Clover Creek. Here's Ormenia, Springfield Ore Mines, around the Springfield Furnace. It's a large site. Patterson Mines, Red Ore Bank, coming into Williamsburg. You can see quite a few spots where they were mining. Here, here, and here. And, you know, Short Mountain, and it continues on and on. There's some more red, and they were also mining heavily along Tussey Mountain. So there was iron ore all over Blair County, especially in the Morrison's Cove area. But if you look at all these sites, and then you come back here to Bloomfield, you'll just see how large this site was. It was the biggest mining site in Blair County. Okay, we're at Ore Hill, and I see this cut that comes between here up into this embankment. So I'm not sure if this would have been an underground tunnel or mine shaft, but this is kind of what the mine shafts would look like. And I heard there's plenty of underground mine shafts out here. So they would actually go underground to get their iron ore. So there's a cut that comes right through here, and here's the embankment. So it kind of looks like this might have been an entrance to a mine, pushed shut. If I had a shovel, I could probably dig this out and look around here. So, okay, I have another geology book from 1897, I believe, and this is a Blair County geology book. Amazing book for understanding iron ore, coal, limestone, Ganister rock. This was made by geologists from this time period, and they documented all the different mines in our area. And in this book, it has extensive research on Bloomfield mines at Ore Hill, and this is a really nice map. It really lays out the Bloomfield area here. And you can see here, you got mine shafts where they're getting iron ore, tunnel. Here's an ore bank, and they have, you know, different ore mining sites along here in this map. But it's a really neat map, and it even shows the dinky track that runs over to the ore washing area where they were washing the iron ore. These sites were, you know, full of clay, and the clay was where the iron ore would you know, be in the clay deposits. And when they would take the iron ore out, they would wash it at these ore washers, and then they would take the clean ore right to the furnaces by railroad. So, incredible map here. This book also shows, you know, all sorts of information about the mining sites. It goes into detail about, you know, all the different mine shafts, the mines, the open cuts, the pits. Very interesting book, and it's very enjoyable reading to find more about it. But the geologists that wrote these books, they did an incredible job. And it even shows you, you know, the percentages of the iron ore and at each mining site. It's very, very, very well done. Okay, we got another test hole. So they came up here, dug down. The early geologists. I mean, this test hole, I'm just standing here. It's you know, probably about 4 foot deep here, filled in. And then we walk over, and we see this massive hole right over here. So they were digging here. They just, you know, pretty much dug everywhere. Here's another. Looks like a test hole right here. There's another test hole up here. And honestly, some of these might not even be test holes. Some of them might be mine shafts, underground mine shafts. They might be entryways from mine shafts. Here's another one up here. There's another sunken hole right here. Just endless up here. Here's another hole over here. Just holes everywhere. There's another hole up there. Here's a hole right here. Here's a hole right here. I said, well, this all test holes. And then there's some large cuts down in here. There's another hole there. It's just interesting, these ore mining sites. They're just all different cuts and dips and holes and trenches. We're at the Roaring Spring train station, and this is the site of the Roaring Spring Historical Society. This railroad is still used today by the Everett Railroad, but down towards the end of the rail bed, it continues on and out to the left, out to Martinsburg. But before, back in the day, it would have went straight out and bared off to the right through Roaring Spring and out to Ore Hill. So this line would have went out to Ore Hill and Henrietta, and it was a main transportation route for iron ore rock. And they pulled that railroad back in, I think, the 40s. They were done operating it after the industry is, you know, shut down. Thank you very much for watching this video on Ore Hill. I really enjoy this iron industry history, and the iron ore mining was incredible. In a future video, I'll do a video on the Frankstown mines and Brush Mountain area of Hollidaysburg. And these mining sites are owned by the Blair Iron and Coal Company. With up to 6 underground mine shafts in Frankstown, found some of the best iron ore in the nation at the time. And it fed multiple furnaces in Blair County. So we'll look forward to that next video. Thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate you.